What led to the decision of canceling this year's fair?
So the decision to cancel this year's fair was incredibly difficult, and it was something we definitely didn't want to have to make.
Right.
But it was one ultimately that it was in the best interest of the fair to do. Um, we put together some budget scenarios, and we're looking at the financial aspects of hosting the fair versus not hosting the fair. Um, as well as the various guidance that's currently out from the Mass Department of Public Health and the CDC regarding large-scale events. Um, Currently, the guidance really suggests, obviously, that large events are not necessarily recommended to do.
Right.
So that certainly it was a huge factor. And of course, the continued conversation about the potential second wave coming of the virus and really an uncertainty of when that may be. Whether that could be in a couple months or a couple weeks or next spring, it's really unclear at this point. But it seems like most public health professionals are pretty confident that it will be coming at some point. Given that risk and the importance of safety, of course, for our guests, we were already leaning towards it not being something we would want to do to have the fair. Then, of course, we ran the numbers, and assuming that we would have a significantly lower attendance based on two things. One, potential governor order saying that we could only have a certain percentage of guests based on our capacity, as well as the likelihood that a lot of people would still not want to be in a social setting like that and prefer to stay at home. We really were concerned at our financial numbers and what that may entail. So we looked at the various budget scenarios. We made some real financial calculations and ultimately determined that based on the most likely scenario of a half-size fair with half attendance, it would really be a significant deficit for us to have the fair as opposed to not having it and putting money into savings and continuing to be as good stewards of this money as we can, as opposed to using it on a fair. So we ultimately decided to go that route, to cancel the fair, but keep the fairgrounds open for other events. We do have various other activities going on up there, goat shows, cattle shows, that aren't very large events, but they certainly are activities to at least keep the fairgrounds alive and active over these summer months.
Okay, perfect. So I know that you mentioned one of the factors of canceling the fair this year was because of a mudslide emergency. Can you kind of explain what that is?
Sure, absolutely. So about 3 years ago, we had what we're calling a mudslide emergency start to take effect. The fairgrounds is built on the top of a hillside. And on one particular side, the land drops off very sharply down to the Green River below. Okay. After this particular rainstorm that we had, what we believe happened is we had a significant amount of groundwater backup with no outlet. And so it found its own new outlets off the fairgrounds. And that created 3 new natural springs out through the mud, out through the embankments that the fairground is on. Since that rainstorm, those water outlets have continued. They have become new streams where water is continuously draining from. Of course, when it rains significantly or when we have snow melt, that water picks up even more significantly. There's a lot more flow. And unfortunately, once we get a pretty good flow there, it causes the embankment to erode and causing not only the fairgrounds to erode away a bit, but also causing potential damage to the homes that are directly below it. So we have been working with a variety of agencies, most notably the U.S. Department of Agriculture, working on some mitigation plans as well as some potential funding to try to fix this problem. It's certainly only getting worse as we continue to have changes in the climate and these larger storms with excessive amounts of rain. we're very fortunate that we had a light winter,
Right.
and we haven't had any major rain in recent months for the most part. So it has remained stable, but it is a multi-$100,000 project. Cost ranges between $200,000 and $500,000
Wow.
at this point, and that's just a serious funding, a big funding gap that we have,
Right.
and we really need to focus on getting that fixed in order to preserve the fairgrounds for the generations to come.
All right, thanks so much for explaining that. So I know under these circumstances right now, a lot of events are pretty hard to attend to. So museums, and for example, they're hosting virtual visitings. Is there any plan in the works for the Franklin County Fair to host a virtual way that your guests can attend?
Perhaps. At this point, we still have a bit of time to pull some things together. The fair would have been about 3.5 months from now.
Right.
So we do have a fair amount of time to organize some activity. We are considering a few options about possibly having a smaller non-fair at the fairgrounds during the weekend of the fair, the details of which to be worked out. But really it depends a lot on what we're allowed to do come September. So we're looking to see what the governor offers for further guidance come, a month or two from now,
Right.
And whether we can move forward with doing any sort of small activity at the fairgrounds during the normal fair weekend, or whether perhaps having some sort of virtual event. So we're kind of in a wait and see pattern right now, unfortunately,
Right.
really depending on what we hear from the State House.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So I know as a nonprofit organization, you guys are kind of struggling financially. So is there any way anyone could donate to contribute to the fair at this point?
Absolutely. And that was actually one of the reasons we did ultimately decide to cancel is we rely a lot on sponsorship from our local businesses and our community. They are incredible. I can't encourage people to support local businesses enough because they really are the heart of the community who help in so many ways, and they really donate a massive amount of money to the fair throughout the year. And of course, right now they're all struggling. They've been closed for several months now, and many are taking out loans just to try to stay afloat. And that was part of the reason we ultimately decided to cancel, because we just couldn't ethically ask businesses who are struggling so hard to give money to the fair, because it's just not right. We need to be supporting them now more than ever and helping them rebuild their capacity. So with that, we do certainly have a funding gap. We are certainly, like many other nonprofits and local businesses, we are looking at a deficit for this year, funding-wise. It's going to be a painful year for so many people, and we're certainly one of those people affected. We are continuing, as I mentioned, to work on that Mudslide project, which is anywhere between 200 and 500,000. Fortunately, the latest estimates, based on the plan we're working with the USDA, is looking at that lower end of the range, which is really great news. And the community's been great. I think we've gotten maybe about $40,000 to $50,000 in donations thus far over the past year or so of fundraising, which is incredible, and we're so grateful to folks for that support. Certainly, if folks are willing and able to, we would be happy to continue to accept donations for that. We do have a GoFundMe page. We haven't done much with it in recent months because we just haven't felt comfortable asking the community for donations. When people are just trying to get enough money to buy food and housing for their families. That's really, of course, the priority for folks right now. But certainly if folks find themselves in a position where they are able to be charitable, we would greatly appreciate support. And you can find us on that GoFundMe page, which can also be found on our website, FCAS, Franklin County Agricultural Society.com. There's a link for the GoFundMe on there, and folks can make a donation.
Perfect. Everything sounds great. I'm very happy you guys have activities for visitors to come and see, even though the fair is canceled this year. So that's
yeah, absolutely. And it was of course, an incredibly difficult decision to make.
Right.
But we felt it was more important to make a sound financial and health decision now, to guarantee that we can continue to have fairs in the future. Whereas if we took the risk and had a fair this year, it's likely that we would have gone into an incredible deficit that we may not have ever been able to recover from. So it was a hard decision, but ultimately it was the right decision that we had to make in order to continue the fairgrounds. It's been here for 171 years, and there's no way I'm going to let the fairgrounds go under my watch.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to interview with us. It was great having you, and I hope the best for next year's reopening of the fair.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jade. I really appreciate you reaching out to us and letting us have the opportunity to check in about the fairgrounds.
Of course. Have a great day. Thank you again.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a good one.